And I'd like to welcome you all to our Tuesday 1:30 p.m. session with Legal Counsel for the Elderly, where Justin will be talking about housing services with you all from the LCE's Tenant Advocacy and Support Practice. The WildTech DC Senior Digital Inclusion Program, its owners and presenters offer technical assistance, virtual health well-being information designed for educational purposes only. You should not rely on the info and any apps or topics made by WildTech, including but not limited to mobile device applications and any social media pages maintained by WildTech, its owners or presenters, as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or legal advice. Thank you so much for letting me read the disclaimer. If you cannot see us, hear us, let us know in the chat. Let's keep our TVs and cell phones in mind. But other than that, let's all have fun. This will be on YouTube, so you can review this session as much as you'd like and share with others. But Justin, if you could introduce yourself and your topic for today. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll be your tech support, and we're going to learn a lot of new things today. So thank you so much for visiting us.
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for the warm introduction. My name is Justin Arrington. I am a staff attorney at Legal Counsel for the Elderly. I work in the Tenant Advocacy and Support Practice Group. In short, basically what that means is that I do housing eviction defense for me and the rest of my colleagues in my practice area. It's about 11 attorneys in my particular department, and we basically represent elderly tenants in the District of Columbia who are on the brink of eviction. So anybody who is being sued for their homes and they're 60 years of age or older, um, we represent them, so long as financial, requirements check out. And yeah, that's essentially what I do. I'm an advocate for the elderly here in DC. And again, we try to make sure that we keep the elderly in DC in their homes and help them with any eviction complaints that they may be facing. So I do have a PowerPoint, Alex. It's just about a 10-point PowerPoint slide that I can love to share with the group. And you know, if I'm okay to get started, I will say this for everybody who's on video, and uh, if you have a question, feel free to stop me at any point in time throughout my presentation. You can raise your hand, as Alex mentioned, and I'm more than welcome to attempt to answer any questions that you all may have.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Yes, you can share your screen. You're able to share your screen. And
Okay.
if you have a question for the group, don't forget you can ask the question like if it's a yes or no. I may ask, when I do that, like, have you done X, Y, and Z? And then you can see the hands for a response. So
Okay.
anything that you like to ask or share.
Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes, Justin, you can hit slideshow at the top next to animations. Uh-huh. And then you can hit from beginning. Is there any way to make it the full screen view? Sorry,
Let
I see
me
your notes. So I
yeah.
think it's under display settings. Sorry, someone else had this. Let's see.
I'm not sure if that's
Can you try the three dots? Sorry, at the bottom, towards the bottom, the left. Yeah, the three dots.
see. Let me see. Okay.
That's okay. Can we try? You can hit enable editing
Oh, where?
towards the top. You can hit enable editing. Try going back to slideshow, and then hit try hitting from beginning again. Oh, yeah. Oh, I see what's going on. Can you hit end slideshow one more time for me? On the right, you see where it says use presenter view. Can you turn that check mark off?
Where are you at? Are you all
Yeah,
the way
to
to the
the
right?
right. Yeah, to the left. It says use presenter view.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. and then see if that changes it.
See if that works.
Can you hit from beginning?
I did that. It's showing. See, I have like three monitors up right now. So let me try to.
Okay, yes. So when you can, if you want to stop sharing, um you can hit when you hit share, you'll be able to select the specific tab.
Okay. Let me. Let
Oh,
me
so go back to Zoom.
go back to Zoom, Alex.
Yeah, go, yes, one.
All right. Thank you guys for your patience. As I mentioned before, my name is Justin Arrington. I'm with the Tenant Advocacy and Support Practice Group, and I work for Legal Counsel for the Elderly. Now, while I work in the housing department at Legal Counsel for the Elderly, LCE for short, uh, uh, has many different practice areas, right? And so it's just not housing. While my presentation will be focused on housing, I do want to, put the disclaimer out there that, we assist the elderly, excuse me, in DC with a range of matters from public benefits and our economic health and security practice group, veterans benefits, consumer law. They deal with things like foreclosure and things of that nature, and discriminatory practices, discriminatory financial practices against the elderly here in DC. So we're an organization that not only focuses on housing, but a lot of different other legal issues that are plaguing DC seniors. Okay, our mission, Legal Counsel for the Elderly. Our mission is to champion the dignity and rights of Washington, D.C. elders by providing free legal and social work services to those in need, empowering, defending, and protecting vulnerable seniors. So, in addition to having attorneys, we do have several social workers who work at Legal Counsel for the Elderly who can assist with matters outside of the legal framework. So, for example, my department, the housing department, for example, we have two social workers who can assist with things such as mental health issues, physical disability issues. In housing, a lot of times we've seen, a lot of times I've seen tenants who are being sued for eviction due to things such as hoarding issues and other things like that. And when they're being faced with those complaints, uh, have social workers in our department that will go out and do an assessment and and and, and try to assist those individuals with hoarding issues or whatever the underlying mental mental disability disability is. Um, what we do for more than 45 years, and as I've explained before, again, not only we champion the dignity and rights of DC elders by providing free legal and social work services to those in need. Um, our our work addresses the most important aspects of an older adult's life, including, like I said before, housing, economic security, self-determination, and health and safety. We impact the lives of nearly 10,000 people annually while advocating for citywide reforms and laws, regulations, and long-term care facilities. If I didn't mention before, our services are completely free. Key aspects of our work, our legal and social work services address the most important aspects of an older adult's life, including housing. We help people avoid eviction and foreclosure and address housing code violations, economic security, as I mentioned before, help people secure public and veterans benefits and tax rebates that they are entitled to, while also helping people avoid scams and financial exploitation. Some more key aspects of our work, self-determination, help people create documents like wills. So we have a department that assists people with drafting wills, powers of attorney, and transfer on death deeds so that they can make decisions about their future and handling their assets. So, those of you who own property and want to make sure that property stays in the family for the next generation, we have a department who is really good about assisting people with drafting wills, and making sure that all those assets that you have, especially if you're a homeowner in DC, right, just how valuable that property is. We have a team that makes sure that ensures rather that those assets stay within the family. Um, Health and safety, we ensure people receive the health care and safety they are entitled to, whether in their homes or in nursing homes or other long-term care facilities, legal counsel for the elderly. So there's two separate components of legal counsel for the elderly. You have the legal side, right, which is my side, but then we also have an ombudsman side that assists more so from a macro perspective, people who are living in long-term care facilities that are not up to code, that are not up to standard. So we have an ombudsman that advocates for for seniors in long-term care facilities here in the District of Columbia. Advocacy work, we take the lessons of our work with thousands of older adults each year to advocate for changes to citywide laws and regulations. We also engage hundreds of pro bono attorneys from other law firms, from area law firms, corporations, and governments to provide direct client services and support our advocacy efforts. So, uh, in short, uh, I have not done so, but many of my colleagues have testified in front of the DC government, advocating on behalf of our clients who are being discriminated against. We've gone in front of Councilman White and other members of the DC Council on various occasions advocating for housing code laws to be changed, advocating for an increase in 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 housing code violations, more specifically, advocating that landlords pay a heftier fine for discriminatory practices and for not addressing housing code violations uh, when they first learn about housing code violations. I see something in the chat. I'm assuming that's not for anybody. Excuse me. But yeah, so we advocate in front of the DC Council about laws that need to be changed and how laws can be uh, uh, more advanced as far as uh, the type of remedies, the type of solutions that they can provide not only tenants who are being faced with discriminatory practices and being not having their needs met by slumlords, but other areas of law as well. Back. Practice areas. As I mentioned before, you have many different practice areas within legal counsel for the elderly. It's not just housing. Um, you have a legal hotline who basically handles um, matters they basically handle matters from a macro perspective. They don't represent anyone, but when you call in to legal counsel for the elderly, the first person that you will speak to, no matter what your situation is, even if it's a housing situation, the first person that you will talk to is somebody from our legal hotline, and they will listen to your issue and make sure that it goes to the right department. Okay. So then you have tenant advocacy and support practice. That is my department, the housing department. You have consumer protection and home ownership, preservation practice. You have economic and healthcare security practice. We have our pro bono access to justice practice, where we reach out to other private law firms throughout DC to see, in their pro bono departments, to see if they are willing to help our client population. We have senior Medicare patrol practice area in the DC long-term care ombudsman, as I just mentioned. Eligibility for our services, housing or whatever service you want to call in about. You have to be first, you have to be a DC resident. We only handle matters in the District of Columbia. Uh, we do not handle we do not handle matters for residents who live in Maryland or Virginia. We only handle matters in Washington, D.C. So firstly, you have to be a DC resident. Secondly, uh, you have to be 60 years of age or older. Uh, but if you want Social Security representation, for example, then 55 years of age. Okay. Uh, Social Security disability representation. Let me be more specific. Excuse me. Um, we represent the elderly who are low income, so 200% or less of the federal poverty level. That is who we represent. As I mentioned when I started the presentation, that we pretty much represent uh, many elderly in DC. But again, it all depends on whether or not whether you meet the threshold of those financial guidelines, because we do have a threshold as to, or a limit as to how much money you can make uh, before we can before we can potentially represent you. This last bullet says does not have to be an AARP member. So legal counsel, I'm not sure if you guys have, some of you may have AARP accounts, but legal counsel for the elderly is an affiliate of AARP. We work at the national headquarters of the AARP building downtown. And so um, sometimes clients get confused. They think they have to be an AARP member in order to qualify for our services and receive assistance. That is not true. Again, while AARP are the ones who sign our checks, they're not for our services. We are an affiliate of AARP, and we do our own thing. And so you do not have to be a member in order to receive assistance. Tenant advocacy and support practice. This is coming back to my area. As I mentioned before, we have two social workers, excuse me, that work in our department who are really, really good. So it's a compilation of social workers, legal and volunteer collaborative that addresses the cause of eviction to help low-income district seniors age in place to maximize their dignity and independence. We are part of a broader network of the landlord tenant legal assistance network that tenants call when facing eviction. If you're ever faced with an eviction, and hopefully you never, you never are, but in the event that you are, if when you go to court, the judge will normally uh, tell tenants that they can call the landlord tenant legal assistance network. And so that network has about 6 or 7 different legal services providers that are similar to legal counsel for the elderly, and that do the kind of work that we do, which is represent tenants who are being evicted from their homes. The one thing that makes us unique is that we specialize in doing it for the elderly, which means we I don't want to say I don't want to say we're more empathetic than other services providers, but we understand the patience that you must have, the understanding that working with the elderly who are being evicted from their homes that they've lived in for 2, 3 decades. You understand that there may be some mental anguish and having to go through this. And so again, that the level of empathy and compassion that we're able to have for our clients, I think makes us uniquely fit to represent the elderly in DC. Not to say that other services providers can't do it, but we do it every single day, as that is our client, as that is our client population. Legal advocacy. So the type of, I mean, if you're a tenant who's being evicted from their homes, it can be for a bevy of different reasons. Some of the two main reasons would be for failure to pay your rent, for some sort of lease violation. But mainly it's a failure to pay your rent. And in a city like Washington, D.C., which is becoming more and more expensive by the day to live in, a lot of a lot of our client population, they only have one source of income, and it's fixed income, right? You're either on, many of my clients are either on, Social Security disability or getting a Social Security retirement check. That's the only income they receive, and they're living in an apartment building, a new apartment building where, the rent is being increased every single year. A lot of times that the amount of monthly rent has surpassed their monthly income. And so it's very, very difficult for them to try to keep up with those rental payments. And then and then kind of the inevitable happens, they get sued for eviction. And so once they get sued for eviction, that's when somebody like myself will step in to look at from a holistic point of view, all the different ways that I could possibly defend this case. We also have a lot of clients that uh, uh, have subsidies, so housing choice vouchers and other kind of veterans vouchers, other kind of housing subsidies to pay their rent. And so a lot of times, sometimes you'll not even sometimes, a lot of times I'll have clients who have subsidies, and DCHA, the DC Housing Authority, for whatever reason, will stop paying the rent. It could be because a landlord they did an inspection and they realized that the land that the tenant's apartment was not in good condition, but it wasn't because of anything that the tenant did. It was because the landlord failed to fix an issue. So then DCHA will just stop paying. So then at that point, we'll step in and knowing the system now, we, instead of they may be sued for an eviction, but we're able to, go down to the DCHA's, offices and, fight for our advocates, at an administrative level, right? Well, many times I've, you know, after my client has been, if I have a client that's been sued for eviction because DCHA stopped doing something that they were supposed to do, right? I'll go to DCHA's headquarters and advocate for my clients, you know, there. And many, it's not just me, but many of my colleagues, we've received, we've helped our clients to get back rent paid off and cases dismissed after after long battles and long fights of with DCHA trying to get them to do the thing that they were supposed to do, or try to get a transfer voucher. Right? If a landlord is, if they've stopped paying because the landlord won't do what they need to do, then DCHA, they need to give my client a transfer voucher so that they can go and move somewhere else. Right? They can that's stable and good, clean, and sanitary housing. So that's pretty much what our advocacy efforts what our advocacy efforts entail. In addition, like I mentioned before, lease violation cases as well, right? If somebody's being sued for because they allegedly violated a provision within their lease, then we also come in and try we first assess the situation, analyze the facts with the law, and then we fight very zealously on behalf of our clients the to ensure that the right outcome is given. Um, some common social work issues that lead to housing litigation, and I know earlier in the presentation that I mentioned hoarding issues, and you know, and our social workers who are much more much more better fit to assess those issues than I am. But some of the social work issues that lead to housing litigation, like I mentioned before, limited income, or a decreased ability to pay monthly rent, cognitive impairment, right? Uh, Again, we represent the elderly, and sometimes that cognitive reasoning and rational thinking may have, for whatever reason, declined, and so those may lead to, and no, that goes to the hoarding issue as well, right? Not you know, you know, you have all these boxes stacked up into your apartment. You're by yourself. You don't have any family. Your kids are grown. They may live in Atlanta, Georgia. They're not very helpful about the situation. And so you may be living in an apartment that is filled with a bunch of, your personal items that are dear to you, and you may not think that it's an issue, right? And until your landlord files a lawsuit against you for, you know, for for hoarding, and then, our social workers do a really good job of coming in and assessing that issue and helping them to understand that, this is an issue, and we've done cleanup projects and things like that, all to make sure that people can age in place and stay where they are. Physical limitations, physical disabilities, definitely would preclude somebody from being able to address whatever it is that their landlord is saying that they have violated in their lease. And again, we have social workers who and other third party resources here at Legal Counsel for the Elderly that can go out to somebody's apartment, assess the issue, and with our resources, you know, utilize people who may be more physically in a position to be able to go out and help. Right. The stresses of aging, loss, and dementia are also reasons as to that are also things that that would lead to know, you know the issues that I've described, and which will and then ultimately lead to somebody being sued, somebody being sued for an eviction. But again, we're at Legal Counsel for the Elderly, we're again very, very uniquely fit to, you know, handle those types of issues uh, better than most legal services providers because we have the resources available. And yeah, on social work interventions, some of the things that our social workers do to intervene uh, before a case, gets too far in litigation process, or even goes to court, are comprehensive psychosocial needs assessments, crisis intervention that deal with abuse or neglect or health issues, care plan and plan of action. I mentioned before, heavy duty house cleaning or supervised volunteers, right? Home health aid slash family engagement. Many of our social workers that will always, if we're dealing with a client who has been sued for eviction because their apartment is in disarray, our social workers will a lot of times, and I've seen it firsthand, will ask the client if they have, any family that are involved, and if so, they will at least, they'll always ask for consent first, ask for consent to be able to contact that family member, because sometimes, as I mentioned before, you have family members kids who are grown, family members who don't live in DC, and they may not know that an issue was an issue until somebody reaches out and tells them. So, right, you've had family come and you've reached out to family before, have gotten them involved, and have been able to remedy the issue. Referrals to representative payee, money management services, referrals for power of attorney or guardianship, linkages to medical and mental health services, and assistance locating more affordable housing. We have uh, a lot of people here, not just in my department, but people who have worked in my department before, but now work, you know, in another across department somewhere else within the organization, who do a really good job of always alerting us what as to what, if any, affordable housing in the District of Columbia is available.
Oh, thank you, Justin, again so far for your session. I really appreciate that list of all the services as a reminder of what you guys do. A question was asked, do you represent clients in court as well as administratively before the housing authority?
Yes, yes, yeah. I just got out of DC Superior Court. Like I said, we are a full-fledged legal legal organization, a full-fledged nonprofit law firm, if you will. And so my department specifically, we really don't even get involved until a complaint has been filed against you. So once a complaint is filed, that's when, you'll reach out to that
Mhm.
landlord, that landlord, tenant legal assistance network, and you'll contact our office, and then the case will be referred to one of the attorneys in my department. It could be referred to myself or one of my colleagues. And then we will, analyze your situation, and more than likely, depending on what it is, we will represent you in court. We also, like I said before, we represent people in front of DCHA at the fair hearing stage, in front of administrative law judges. We pretty much do it all. So thank you for the question.
I see we have a hand. So, and you have a question for Justin about anything so far?
Yes, Justin. Um, I have a friend that lives in Delta House,
Oh, Delta
and
Towers?
yeah, they just rebuilt, remodeled the old building,
Hmm.
uh, and um, opened up the new building. Now they've got people because the president has made it clear that they have to get people off the street. They've got younger people staying in there now, and it's a lot of septic going on. They don't have the proper cleaning. The trash room stinks and stuff like that. And they're trying to figure out who they can go to get some help. Can they contact you?
Yeah, well, I will say this. I can give you, I'm gonna give you our legal a legal hotline number to contact.
I
And they
know
can,
the hotline number. I'm on the advisory council.
so you're familiar with legal counsel for the elderly then.
Yeah. Uh,
Uh, yeah, so me personally, I wouldn't advise that they contact me personally.
no, I
Um,
mean, is there some way they can get some help there in your office, or is it another office that would do that?
well, yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like there's an issue with the common areas within the building, and
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, Delta Towers. You're talking about Delta Towers on the corner of Bladensburg Road, and was
All
that?
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been
I,
there actually.
I have a deep. I'm a Delta, and I was part of
Oh,
the fundraising for the first building. So,
yeah. So we've done plenty of outreach events at Delta Towers. I've been a part of some of those outreach events. If I'm not mistaken, one of my colleagues, because they have a tenant association over there, and I
well,
believe,
that I don't know what's going on with them lately, but I had to call
well,
uh, uh
this
somebody the other
this
day.
is this is what I can do. I mean, I could take your name and contact information down. I could reach out to one of my colleagues who I believe was working with the tenant association at Delta Towers, and I can raise your concerns with her.
Okay, because the person that's living there is bipolar, and she doesn't do well with people hollering, and
Okay.
if you talk to her in a calmly but polite manner,
Hmm.
uh but a lot of people don't have patience with people. Since I worked with uh handicapped children for a while, so I kind of understand working with adults that have the same problems that some you know
And do you mind sending Justin a direct message, please, with that information?
Okay, I will do that. I will find you on here and send it to you.
Yes, you
Yeah.
got it.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for talking with me, Justin.
Oh, no, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you for asking the question and raising.
Any other questions right now? Okay. Um, the next slide just talks about community lawyering, and how we, look at ourselves as lawyers of the community and lawyers who are in the community, constantly advocating for, again, for elderly tenants in the District of Columbia. There's a quote here that says, "We use legal advocacy to build the power of communities to challenge and eradicate systems of inequality." In this model, rather than saviors or gatekeepers, lawyers are tacticians in the struggle for change. We call it community lawyering. And as I mentioned before, that's pretty much how we look at ourselves here at Legal Counsel for the Elderly. We are, we're advocates who are in the community, and really fighting for the elderly to be able to age in place here. DC, if I'm not mistaken, since 2010 is one of the most has become one of the most gentrified cities in America. And so for us, it's really, really important that, the people who are born and raised here, Washingtonians, that they're able to be able to sustain, that they're able to sustain their lives in this great city. Some more about community lawyering, building tenant power. Uh, you have supporting tenant associations, resident councils, and ETAP. So, like I said before, when I was talking to Ann, we've supported some tenant associations here at Legal Counsel for the Elderly in my department, right? We do things like know your rights presentations. We give advice about organizing tenant rights and advocacy strategies. We write demand letters. We do eviction defense for TA members on rent strike, platforming tenant leaders, and meeting with housing of urban development. Right? And we also collaborate with other organizers, other grassroots organizations here in DC, who 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 may be dealing with similar issues in their own right, or who may know of a building that's dealing with a particular issue that we may be able to step in and come in and as the lawyers be able to you know, legally build or generate a tenant association who then can fight against some of the issues that they are facing. So we partner with organizations like Empower DC, the Latino Economic Development Center, just to name a couple rather of the organizations that we partner with, grassroots organizations that we partner with to try to address building-wide related issues. This is just a complaint form of housing conditions. It's not necessarily important just to know that uh, if you are a tenant who is uh, suffering substantial housing code violations, in DC Superior Court, there is a branch called the Housing Conditions Calendar. In that branch, that gives tenants an opportunity to file a complaint or a lawsuit against their landlord, seeking, asking the court that their landlord, fix the issues that they are facing. Now, you won't be able to, unfortunately, there's no the housing conditions calendar does not provide any monetary relief for tenants who want their landlords to fix their issues, but it does provide for rent abatement, i.e., a decrease in your rent. If you file a housing conditions calendar complaint in June, alleging certain issues, and January comes around and the landlord still hasn't done anything after your unit has been inspected, they've been on notice of the things that they're supposed to fix. Come January, I've seen judges, reduce a tenant's rent by 50%, 75% because the landlord has been on notice for quite some time. Hey, you need to fix these issues. No, the tenant has put you on notice. You can't say that you didn't know about it. We've done an inspection. We've done a couple of inspections, and you have not yet done it. And so um, that is a form that I have filed lawsuits in. I know my colleagues have filed lawsuits in, seeking that uh, uh, my clients, seeking that the conditions of my client's apartment uh, be remedied as soon as possible. Okay. This slide is about the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, ERAP, as it's commonly known as. ERAP is a program that provides rental assistance. Uh, it used to, well, I will say this. Let me say this before I even give a synopsis about the program. It's shut. It's closed right now. They before the new administration came in, they had a lot more funding than what they currently do, and so um, it's still an annual program. They get money every single fiscal year, but once the money that they have received is accounted for, they'll stop accepting applications. And that's what's happened this fiscal year of 2026, even though we're only in April. Uh, back the fiscal year starts in October. So when the fiscal year reopened, uh, when fiscal year 2026 reopened back in October, I think there was a they were doing they switched from doing online applications or strictly online applications to doing in-person applications, and that caused a real mess. But long story short, they ran out of funding. But in any event, you know, it- ERAP has been a tool that I have used for a lot of my clients who who were still who got behind in their rent during COVID and just needed a little bit more help to be able to get back on their feet. And ERAP is also the only true financial assistance program in DC that I know about. I know during COVID, when the eviction moratorium was going on, there was I think the DC government had a program. This was before I moved to DC. The DC government had a program that I think was similar to ERAP and was providing a lot of DC residents with financial assistance for your rent. Uh, but uh, putting everybody on notice that ERAP is a program that does provide financial assistance for individuals who need it regarding their rent, only regarding rent. When to contact us? Early, right? The earlier, the better. Uh, the moment you receive a 30-day notice that your landlord plans on, filing a lawsuit against you if you don't pay your back rent or if you don't fix your lease violation. In that notice, by law, they have to include the number for the landlord tenant legal assistance network. And if you call that number and you are 60 years of age or older, you know, the landlord tenant legal assistance network knows to reach out to us because they know that that we represent elderly tenants in DC. And so we pretty much get first bite at the apple, if you will, to represent the elderly in the city because people know that we do it and we do it well, right? So uh, again, contact us early, right? Once you receive that notice, contact that number, give us a call because the earlier you contact us, the better, the more, I guess, the better we are, the better we're able to provide you with not only legal representation, but you know negotiating a whether it be a payment plan or if you want to move out because your landlord isn't up to par and you've been asking for things to be done for quite some time. We can ask that, hey, you know, Miss Sherry said that, Miss Sherry has been complaining about housing code violations for a long time and nothing has happened. You're saying that she owes $5,000 in rent, but due to the fact that she's had these housing code violations for 5 years, I want you to waive that $5,000 rental balance and give Miss Sherry 90 days to move out. Right? The earlier you contact us, the better off we are in being able to make those calls and to try to negotiate on your behalf. Time, whenever a lawsuit is filed against you, whenever you're on the brink of a lawsuit being filed against you, time is your best friend. But once you run out of it, it's pretty much it's pretty hard to try to get anything done. Okay, if you receive a notice from DCHA, please give us a call. If you see DCHA, I can say from personal experience, they have a lot of administrative issues, and so 9 times out of 10, they probably did something wrong. so, so, so if you please, whenever you receive a notice from DCHA, give us a call. Um, anything
So
on this?
there's some I see two questions. I had to step away. Uh,
Okay.
it says, do you alert the DC Attorney General to bring class action suits? And what constitutes an unauthorized tenant?
Yeah. We have a relationship with the DC Attorney General's office. I'm actually on there. I actually meet with lawyers from the DC AG's office every single month. Uh, I have not referred anyone for a class action lawsuit yet. I know the DC AG's office, they're pretty good at going out and filing class action lawsuits on their own. But I will say this, it's not something that I can't do. I just haven't done it yet. And it's not something that we won't do. Again, I haven't done it yet because I haven't seen a scenario in which I need to do that. Right? But to answer in short, I can. I can. And uh, I believe the second part was what's an unauthorized occupant? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that was the question.
Okay, well, okay. Yeah, an unauthorized occupant by law is simply somebody who has no right to live in the unit. Either they're not on the lease, so they're not a named tenant, and they are residing, possessing uh, uh, the unit without any legal right to do so. Now, those cases, however, they're a lot more complex than meets the eye, right? Sometimes I've seen scenarios where uh, I had a client whose mother had passed away. The mother had a voucher. She passes away, and the daughter remains in the unit, right? That can be a potential unauthorized occupant case, which is a lot more complex than somebody just, a squatter just,
Mhm.
finding a vacant unit or a vacant home and residing in it. These cases are a lot of times it derives out of, somebody in the family passed away, the person who remained in possession of the property wasn't on the lease. The landlord refused to take that person's rent for whatever reason, and then they filed a lawsuit against them. Sometimes it happens in property that was named in a will. Right? You have uh, mom passes away or aunt passes away, niece stays in the home, the trustee of the trust, because the home was named in the trust. She's also listed as a beneficiary of the property, but she doesn't want to take the property anymore. So then she files a lawsuit against the niece who never left the property. These are very, very complex cases that generally derive out of, somebody passing away and then somebody who had a close ties with that person who passed away remaining in the property.
If you were to take in some young people, juveniles who had lost parents after, you've moved in, would that constitute a case of unauthorized tenants?
Well, if you were to take in juveniles who
Maybe lost their parents
maybe
or.
lost a parent, yeah, I would say it depends, right? It
Mhm.
depends. I mean, if you took somebody in who may have lost a parent and you notified your leasing office, hey, I'm taking this person in. I want them to be named on the lease, then no, I think you're fine, right? If it all depends on the scenario and the type of case. If you have a voucher, for example, right? If you're on some sort of subsidy and you take in somebody who lost a parent, right? You want to notify, whomever, whomever the voucher holder, whomever, provides you the subsidy because with
Mhm.
subsidy payments, depending on how many people live in the home, that can change the amount that the subsidy provider is willing to pay. Right. So I always say, my advice is this: always notify whomever your landlord is, when you take somebody in. Now, if you own your home, of course you can take
Right.
in whomever you want, right? But if you're
Hmm.
if you're a leaseholder,
Hmm.
I, I, it's always best to notify uh, the property that hey, I have an extra tenant living here. Would you put them on the lease, right? 9 times out of 10, it's probably not going to be an issue. I think it's just when you don't notify people and, for whatever reason, people just forget to do it, right? Because they're doing a good thing and they just don't think about it. But,
Hmm.
just to,
Yeah. Do you find that your cases and now are increasing due to the emphasis on immigration and uh, immigrant status?
Um, our cases, I mean, our caseload is always pretty high, but I would say our case has increased due to the the federal government reducing the amount of funding for this kind of work. Right? I think it's more so monetarily. Like, for example, the program that I mentioned earlier, ERAP. There was they decreased the amount of funding for ERAP by a lot this fiscal year. And of course, with there being a lack of financial assistance out there, that increases the amount of evictions that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So now with immigration, I think it's made us be more cognizant about how we go about, certain outreach events to certain marginalized communities who are being attacked by this administration when it comes to immigration, right? So we've just adjusted the way we do things a little bit when we're going out and doing presentations and representing somebody of a group that's being attacked from an immigration standpoint by this administration. So
Mm-hmm.
not an uptick in cases, but definitely a difference of strategy, I would say, is what we've done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ron.
Is that it, Alex? Is that all the questions right now for now?
Yep. Again, I'm taking a look at the hands in the chat. So
Okay,
we
okay.
have time flies and we're having fun. So thank you all so much for all the questions, everybody.
I think this is just about economic security. Again, this is outside of my department, but it is
Yeah,
something.
we've had so many presentations from you guys. I love it. My favorite was the public benefits checkups. I actually had a few new seniors here. I just recommended them to
Okay,
call the hotline for the checkups because they could be getting more EBT or more this or more that just by doing the
correct,
checkup and what they rightfully deserve. So
correct.
that's I recommend everyone calls LCE if you have not done a public benefits checkup. Please call the legal counsel for the elderly so you can make that appointment. Everything with the medic soon, you got I love that you guys talk about all of these things because they're so important. Veterans, that was a great session. The Schedule H, we learned about that. That was amazing. The Medicare, they'll be on. We've had them on, but they'll be on in a few months. So
Okay.
again, thank you again, legal counsel, for providing all this great information for us.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean that pretty much takes care of it, Alex. As
Yes,
far
but if you'd like to go over any specific ones or any changes, um, probably she came with us with some changes for some programs. So if you just see anything that you would like to highlight, please highlight for us.
Yeah, no, as far as anything regarding the public, again, my specialty is housing. I mean, so if there had been changes to the public benefits, anything in the public benefits department, I would have to refer to Robin on that one. Um, but yeah, I mean, you know, you guys are more than welcome, like I said, to give our hotline a call and see whatever if you're facing an issue, it's just better that you call and and,
Hmm.
and, and discuss your issue. If it's something that we can you know, help with, then of course we'll help with it. But if it's not, then we'll try to pass you along or point you in the right direction to where you can get the assistance that you need. Um,
Yes,
because
that list you just had the slide before this one. I liked all those DC resources.
yes, this is huge. I mean, this link not only does it help with, I mean, housing, but also, you know, Bread for the City, for example. I know they provide services, similar to ours. They may, uh, they may have some financial services as well. I'm not sure, but this is basically a comprehensive list of all the different housing housing resources and tools that you
Mhm.
can utilize whenever you're being faced with an eviction.
Take the screenshots, y'all. Take any screenshots. So yes, take a second. You want to take a screenshot of these services just to have. Take that screenshot. Um, and then from your experience, Justin, when you receive calls about housing, maybe what's one of the most common things that you receive calls about? And again, any tips when it comes to calling legal counsel regarding housing? So if you could maybe summarize some of those slides or highlight them.
Yeah, so
Be
I
well.
mean, yeah, when I receive calls about housing from tenants, like I said, it's either one of two things, right? They're being sued. Again, let me preface my comments by saying this. When I receive a call, it's because somebody's being sued for an eviction, right? So when the calls that I receive is either for one or two things, non-payment of rent, somebody's being sued because they failed to pay their rent, or somebody's being sued because they allegedly violated a provision within their lease. And my job is to, again, keep people housed, right? To avoid them being evicted, at not at all costs, but definitely, zealously fighting for them not to be evicted. So what I do, I mean, I simply analyze their issue, see if there's any defenses, right? Why haven't you paid your rent? Why, asking those types of questions. Do you have any housing code issues? You know, if you do have housing code violations, have you notified anybody? When did you notify that person? What did they do about it? Do you have any documentation? How did you notify that person? Did you call them? Did you send them a text? Did you email them? So forth and so on. So again, the tips that I would give the group here today is that, again, like I said earlier, going back to see the slide. Oh, went too fast. When to contact us, right? This is I want to I would emphasize this slide. Contact us early, right? If you're ever in the position where your landlord gives you a 30-day notice, to vacate or to quit, saying that, hey, Mr. So and so, you owe this amount of money, and you paid your rent every single month since you moved in. All right, now they're saying that you owe this money. Give us a call. Give us a call. Even if you, yeah, again, even if you don't think that that you know you know what what your landlord is saying is true, it's the legal system is very, very complicated. So even if you believe that, hey, you don't owe this money, or you didn't violate your lease, once you get into court, you go there by yourself. Court can be intimidating. In the landlord, they're gonna have their attorney with them. There's gonna be a bunch of different legalese and things that are being said that the average person, the lay person who's not in court every single day, just doesn't. They don't. They're not used to hearing that language. So if you call us, people who are used to hearing that language, again, we can make sure that you have a mouthpiece by your side when you go to court, because the other side is going to have an attorney. And it's, I always tell people, it's best to go to court with an attorney than it is to go without one. Even if you believe wholeheartedly in your defense and in your case, and that you did nothing wrong. Once you get into court, you may freeze up, you may not say the right thing, right? You contact us, and you contact us early. We can make sure that, not only that we can represent you, but that when you get into court, again, we can be that mouthpiece, and we can facilitate whatever it is that you want us to say, so long as it's in the legal bounds for us to say it. But yeah, that would be my tip and advice, to just, if you're ever being sued for an eviction, receive that notice, please give us a call immediately, so that we can try to see if we can help.
Thank you, Justin. Again, I put the legal counsel's hotline number 202-434-2120 in the chat. Make sure you take
Hmm.
a screenshot of this slide in case yourself or anyone that you know needs this kind of assistance on who to call. So I'm gonna make sure y'all take that number down. And again, most of us have attended LCE, but if you have not attended these sessions, make sure you write down or take note of that number in the chat, 202-434-2120, if you would like assistance with any of these things that the LCE does, not just housing, but everything that we've talked about before as well. Any last thoughts or comments or questions for Justin when it comes to housing, LCE? You can raise your hands. If you have any other last comments or questions for Justin, but thank you so much today for your session.
Oh no, Alex, thank you. I appreciate it. And again, like I said, anybody has any questions, I can put my, let me see how I can do this. Can I put my information in the chat if you guys don't
Yeah,
already
yeah,
have it?
you can hit the chat and then be able to add it while you're presenting.
Yeah.
Any other questions, please raise your hand in Zoom. You can also unmute yourself as well. Any questions? Any questions? But call that hotline again. Everyone's challenges are a little different, so that way you can call and get that exact question answered for you. Thank you, Justin, for putting your info in the chats.
Yeah, no problem. Please give me a call.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I gave you the hotline number. That is not my phone number. Thank you.
That's fine.
I'm thinking about the hotline so much, Alex, that
That's okay. You can edit it or add yours. Okay.
yeah, I just added it.
Miss Marie, you had a question or comment for Justin?
Yes, if someone has had problems with being possibly evicted more than a year ago and they left without going to court, can they reinstitute a case against the landlord?
Somebody was sued for an eviction more than a year
They
ago,
were
and
getting ready to evict them and they left before they could be evicted. They'd been going back and forth to court
oh yeah,
discussing the
yeah,
rent problem, but they said that they owed more money than they thought they owed because they had a voucher, but
hmm
the caseworker died and the paperwork wasn't transferred to another caseworker and he
oh
didn't
wow,
know it.
oh
So
wow,
the money piled up and they said that they were going to evict him. They weren't taking into account that it wasn't his fault that he didn't know that he didn't have his voucher wasn't still good.
yeah, but he vacated the property, right? Before he could be,
Yes.
yeah. So eviction cases are about possession of property. If a tenant vacates the property, there's nothing to fight about anymore. There's nothing, no,
Okay.
yeah. So that person should be good. And to answer your question, no, the landlord couldn't reinstitute a claim for possession against that tenant anymore because they're no longer possessing the property. Now, I will say in situations where even if somebody vacates the property before an eviction can take place, if they still owe money, the landlord, depending on how they filed their paperwork, could still go after the person for the money that was owed.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Thank
right,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Miss Marie. Mr. Ronald, you had a question or comment for Justin today? Mr. Ronald, you had a question or comment today from Justin?
No, he answered all of my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Justin.
All right, thank you.
Thank you both. Any other last comments, questions for Justin today? But again, the hotline number and his information is in the chat. All right. Well, any last thoughts, Justin? Any last words of advice, legal counsel about housing? Anything before you leave us today?
No, I would just say thank you all for having me. You guys been an amazing group. Thank you for all the questions. They were really good questions. And yeah, and thank you, Alex. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Justin. Again, this will be on YouTube, so you could share this with others. Everyone on the call, you could share this with this others as well. So let's all say thank you so much to Justin. Wish him a wonderful day, DC Emancipation Day, and we'll be seeing the legal counsel again next month, on the second Tuesday at 1:30. Thank you, Justin. You have a wonderful
Thank
rest
you,
of your
Justin.
Thank
day.
you,
Thank you.
Justin.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
you.
Thank you. Thank
So
you,
Thank
guys.
you
much.
very
Thank you,
much.
Justin.
Thank you. Very good program.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Very
Justin.
interesting.
Thank
Very,
you.
very nice.
So
Very
much.